Hi everyone, this is Board Games and Bourbon. I'm Glenn Flaherty, and right now I want to talk to you about Proving Grounds, a new solo game being put out by Renegade Games. I love me my solo games, and what you're trying to do in this game is you are trying to defeat 8 enemies and do that under a 1-minute pressure clock. Now I'm going to talk about the gameplay, how to defeat it actually, and the modules that kind of imbue new life into it. But this is generally how you play the game, okay? You're going to defeat all these enemies represented by cards using a handful of dice. Some of these enemies will require certain numbers of dice, like this person requires 2s. If I have 2 appropriate dice, I can move up on this little health track. If I then have 3 appropriate dice, it moves up again, and I've defeated this person. The card goes away, and a new enemy comes out, okay? Now, what makes the dice appropriate is to defeat this enemy, you have to use number 1 dice. To defeat this one, they all have to be number 2s. Like I have to have 3 number 2 dice in my roll to defeat this person, okay? But the thing that kind of makes it harder is when you have a 1-minute timer on doing all your rolls. The rule about rolling is that you can only re-roll dice if you have more than 1 in your roll. So like if I did this, I have 2 6s. Well, I can re-roll my 2 6s. Actually, I have 3 6s. I have 2 5s, and I have a bunch of 3s. That's actually a magical roll. You would roll that and then just stop. That's actually one of the strategies to winning the game. But what I can do is I can pick one of these piles and I can re-roll them. Should I have singles, I cannot re-roll them. So they are of a big detriment. If you have 1 single in your hand, not a big deal. But if you have 2 or 3, you're definitely going to want to keep re-rolling to get rid of those. Because every time you attack an enemy with just 1 die, the health track slides backwards. And should it slide all the way down to this little red area on a card, you're going to take an injury. And when you take an injury, your heart is going to move down. Okay, but it is actually moving closer to getting you extra die in the game. And you have to give up your die. So I'd have to take a die, and it goes there. At the end of the round, this little conveyor belt of dice kicks in, and then this comes into my hand, and then these die are going to slide like that. Okay, not a big deal. Okay, so that's basically how this is going to work. But every one of these cards have different conditions that you have to consider as well. So for instance, this has no condition, but over here, this one says green and yellows are ignored. Okay, so if I'm rolling 4s, if I ever get a 4 on this die, I can't use it because it is ignored for this card. Meanwhile, over here at the number 2 spot where I have to roll 2s on my dice, it says greens and yellows count as doubles. Okay, so that's pretty important to keep in mind. Now, you also have the app. You can use the Renegade app to be your timer or anything to be your timer. So what I'm going to do here is just show you kind of like a strategy for beating it. Now, I found it works, so I don't think it's really a spoiler because I think you're going to discover this anyway pretty rapidly. And it really just comes down to judgment calls at a certain point. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take your big thing of dice. You're going to click the timer, go, and then you're going to take it, you're going to roll. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to separate the dice into their different numbers, okay? That's going to help you. So this is a really bad roll. I have 2 1s, 2 3s. Then I have individually a 2, a 4, a 5, and a 6. That is atrocious. That's really bad. That means 4 of these cards are going to slide down. The 2 position will slide down. The 4 position will slide down and give me an injury. 2 is okay, though. It gives me a little bit of buffer on the card. There's a gap there before it goes into the injury. The number 5 one has a little bit of a barrier, but 6 does not. That's pretty bad. So once you roll your dice, and when you're in a bad situation like this, you have to see what you can do to salvage it. The good thing here is that over here, I have a little bit of a buffer, so I could take a chance and re-roll my 1s. My 3s also have a little bit of buffer, so I could re-roll my 3s. However, if I look at this, it says here, green dice count as twice against the enemy. So the good thing there was I had already defeated the enemy, okay, because I had a green number 1 and I had a yellow number 1 playing against that opponent. Okay, so that means I actually would be able to defeat this, and then I would move up closer to getting rid of the card. Remember, I'm trying to get rid of 8 enemies total. On the other hand, I did not beat this threshold because this card is saying that I need 3 or more. I only have 2. I'm probably more apt to say I want to roll these ones because I do have the buffer and I haven't beaten the criterion yet. So I'm going to roll it again. I have another 1 and I have a 4. So now I have 2 4s. Okay, this is still pretty bad. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-roll my 3 1s because I need quantity plus my 4s are going to help with this number 4 card because I only need 2 there. It says green and yellows don't apply, not an issue, so I would re-roll this. So what you're seeing here in the decision making is there's a importance order to what you choose. Okay, so I'm here one more time. I would probably say at this point, I'm probably getting close to running out of a minute on the timer. The last thing you would probably say to yourself is, can I salvage anything? There's like 3 seconds. You'll see that the 5s are not going to meet this 5 criteria, which requires 3. You're going to give it a whirl because 2's not that great anyway. All right, didn't really save anything. So what's going to happen here? Well, I have a single 1. Now the single 1, I'm attacking. Here's the thing. If you attack with just 1 die, you go down. This would have counted as 2, okay, but you have to attack with at least 2 die. I have a number 2 here. That's bad. I go down. I'm closer to the injury location, but not too bad because I can still save that. Getting 2 is not that hard. Number 4, it says here that I only need to get 2 dice, and I certainly have that, and they are not green or yellow. And then in my 6th position, I need to cross a threshold of 2. I certainly have that. I've gone up. Here's the great thing. Had I had 4 6s, I could have clicked it up again because it's cumulative. Okay. Okay, so now I have to resolve the turn. Well, lucky thing here, I didn't take any injuries, right? It's early on. It's a little bit forgiving in the beginning. No injuries. I do not need to move my health, and the conveyor belt kicks in. So this comes into my hand. These move down, okay? Now I'm going to press the clicker one more time. After this, I'm going to do just one more turn and then show you the expansions, okay? I'm going to do this, and I roll. I press the clicker for the 1 minute, and it's a go. Okay, so I have 2 6s. I have a 1. I have 2 3s, a 5, a 2, 6, and a 4. I am having just atrocious rolls. This is really bad. You cannot sit on this. You're taking too many injuries, okay? You're going to take those 6s because you have quantity. You're going to re-roll them. Okay, this was a 5 a second ago. I got 2 2s. I still have a 6, and I have a 1 and a 4. So now what you're going to do is you look at your pairs and see what you have a buffer on. I have a buffer on 3. 2, I have no buffer. 5, I have a buffer. So I'm going to roll my number 3s because why not? Let's go to this side. 2 6s. Okay, that's not bad. I'll take that. I'm down to 1 and 4. 5, I have a little bit of a buffer. Let's see if we can get rid of it. 6 and a 4. Okay, I would actually accept that and stop there. Timer's up, or I would press done on the timer and we would move on. Okay, so now it's time to resolve. Notice how if I don't apply a die to anything, I don't have to even interact with that person. It's only if I attack a person with a single die, it's bad news. Okay, well, bad news there. Bad news bear. I took an injury. I hit it with 1. That's sliding down. Okay, I have 2 dice here. Okay, and the great thing is green counts as 2. So I actually hit with 3. It says the threshold is 2. I have moved up and I am fine. Number 4, this says green and yellow do not apply. Here's the thing though. So I didn't actually move up the track because I don't have enough proper die, but because I did not hit it with a single, I don't move down either. Fine. Number 6, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 6s. So that's moved up 2, and that's enough to move up another 2. So I'm doing pretty well on this person, okay? Now I have to resolve my injuries. So I have an injury here. My heart is going to move down. I'm going to lose 1 of my die, goes back there. I'm going to readjust the card to start over for the next round. And now the conveyor belt kicks in. This comes into my hand. This slides down. Okay, and that's how the whole game is going to go until you defeat 8. There's a bunch of varieties in here, okay? Should this eventually get over here, what you do is you choose a color that you want to put in your hand and you substitute it. So, I want blue, so I'm losing a generic white. Blue comes into my hand. Then the health resets. This moves down, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. And should the heart land over here the third time, you're done. It did not end well for you. And that's basically how the game plays. The timer actually makes it a little bit frenetic, but once you have a strategy going in, is it going to become a lot easier, okay? Now, in this deck here, you have a whole bunch of blue cards that are your enemies. Make sure to get the replacement ones. The ones that came out with the game originally were a little bit too tough, but, be up for a challenge. Okay, then you have these other cards you can move in, and these are parts of the expansions, okay? And I'm going to go through each of these and kind of tell you how they play, all right? They're really not that bad. And I don't even think playing them is going to be important. I'm just going to show you. And all of these are more described in the rule book over here. So let's go to the first module. The first module in the game is called the Dragonling. And that's over here. You're going to get a special die you roll. And what I really like, and this kind of almost looks like it could have been in Terror Below the game. It's a dragon, but if you flip it over, it has the rules for the expansion. And basically what you're going to do is you're just going to roll this with the regular die in the game, okay? 66% of the die is going to give you a benefit. 2/3 of the die, or excuse me, 1/3 of the die, 33% is going to be a negative. And what that means is, should you roll the talon's teeth or the tail of this die, okay, you can add it to any set or single to attack an enemy, right? You just add it. If you roll the wing, which I believe was only on one side, yeah, it's only on one side, okay? The wing result may be used to prevent the battle marker from moving down on something, okay? But if you get the chaos, that means you have to re-roll your color die. That can really mess you up, okay? That's a really easy expansion to put in the game. You don't have to change how you interact with all the cards. That's probably appropriately the first expansion you could use. Okay, the number 2 expansion is called Chariots. And the Chariots in the game are basically event cards. And what you have to do is you have to resolve the event before you move on in the game. So for example, this one here says, if this card is not dealt with, what's going to happen is it says ignore all 5s this round and move the battle marker down 1 space on enemy number 5. Okay, you got to get rid of that card. So what you have to do is you have to roll 5, put it on that card to get rid of it. Over here is a card that says move the battle marker down 1 space on enemy 3 and 6. That's awful. Got to put a 6 on that to get rid of it. Over here is a card that says for every single, right? Remember that if you get singles, that's usually bad news. And one of the expansions, it's good news. Move that enemy's battle marker down 1 extra space unless you put 2 equal dice here. Okay. So you're trying to get rid of those. Those are kind of like ongoing dilemmas, kind of like an Eldritch Horror until you get rid of it. Okay. Module 3 is called Inspiration Powers. Inspirational powers probably is what I would have preferred. And basically, they're just very happy things that make the game easier. This says, let's see here, Moonlit Gaze. When you add a die to the exhaustion track, which is that conveyor belt we talked about a second ago, immediately move it down 1 more space, meaning it comes to you sooner. You're going to put one of these out, and that'll just kind of help you throughout the game. So that kind of makes it easier for you. I would suggest doing this if you're going to combine it with other modules to kind of take the edge off. Celestial Hall, when you defeat an enemy, do not roll for Conspirators in the following round. Now, some of these will work, like I said, with other modules. We'll talk about the Conspirators module in a second, okay? But that's basically what that does. Moving on. There's a total of 6 here. Shields. Shields are very interesting because what the shields do is they basically invert the idea that rolling 1s is a bad. And this is my favorite module because it really keeps me on my toes as I go. So basically what happens is when you have die, normally you just have to break the number. Like this says you have to get 3 die. Okay, here. If I put down die, let's say I put 2 here, it's not enough to score an attack, but it's not bad enough to take an injury and slide down the track. If I'm in that middle ground, what happens is the bad guy will pick up a shield. Now he has extra blocking. And by the way, I love the shield because when you look at it, it actually looks like it fits really well. There's the card. And now he has a shield. I love that. Now, in order to break through his shield, you have to put a 1 to this person next time. And then you get rid of the shield, and then it starts all over. So I actually really like that. Normally it's bad. Now it's good. You're really keeping yourself on your toes. Like that expansion a lot. Okay, now we're moving on to number 5, the Conspirators, okay? And the Conspirator cards are kind of like this. And basically, if you put a dice on it, they're going to activate. So this one says here, add 1 of your dice to the exhaustion track, okay? And to explain it in further means here, by the way, when you get into the book, they give you a little bit of flavor text, which is kind of cool. And the game overall came with a storybook if you're into that, which is pretty cool. So it says here in this module, every time that the person defeats an enemy, another one of the conspirators reveals their identity and attempts to exert influence over the arena. Setup, shuffle the 6 conspirator cards, okay, that's what I just showed you there, into a single deck and place it above the encounter board, which is what they're calling this. Face down, then reveal 1 card. Each time you defeat an enemy, reveal the top card of the conspirator deck at the start of the following round, placing it next to other conspirators in play, right? Once all conspirators have been revealed, ignore the rule. At the beginning of each round, before you start the timer, roll 1 attack die. If the die result matches the number of the revealed conspirator, that conspirator is now active, okay? So it kind of like just goes on and makes it harder and harder and harder, which is kind of cool. Now, what do they all say here? Right? So you have Richard Greystone. If you roll a 1, you're rolling the die. Colored dice are considered white this round. So they're all kind of negative, right? So you had the inspirational cards that made it easier. This makes it harder. Fern Greenbush. Well, that's a very appropriate name. Choose an enemy and move their battle marker down 1 space. Ooh, this is getting harder and harder. Strongheart. 1 set of choices becomes a single this round. 1 set of your choice becomes, okay, so like if you have a set of die, they become a single. Eek. Okay, that can actually help though, because I think I saw a card that said you have to at least put something on them. I think that was in there. Here, for every single, move that enemy's battle marker down 1 extra space. Getting harder. Okay, Queen, very nice. In one of my favorite bands. Add 1 of your dice to the exhaustion track. Okay, that's really hard, but you know, then again, if you have an odd number of dice, sometimes it can be hard. Move all dice to the exhaustion track up 1 space, moving back. So it takes longer to get them into your hands. So none of those are really good. Okay, and then lastly, the last expansion actually uses, and what's the proper name of it? It uses this dial. And this one is called Sun and Moon. Okay, so if we look at this dial here, you're going to notice there's actually 2 little lines coming off here. And what that means is wherever that is facing, this is the enemy you're trying to defeat. And you're going to have these dice here. And what will happen is if you defeat this person, you get a die. If you do not defeat that person, nothing happens. But then on the other side, if you accidentally defeat the person on the opposite side of their face, something bad happens to you, right? So luckily the game writes it out very easily as always. The sun effect, like I just said, if you score a hit on the enemy in the sun position, meaning that it's within that little area, choose 1 of the colored die from the sun and the moon dial, add it to your pool. 1 of those. This is in place of being over here on the side, by the way. Normally you'd be on the side. Now it's over here. Okay. For the moon effect, meaning behind, and there's literally a moon on it, it's also shaded. It says if you score a hit on the enemy in the moon position, nothing happens. If you did not score a hit on the enemy in the moon position, move the battle marker down 1 space. Yikes. Okay, so that's like double duty bad. That one I found a little bit, I thought it was a good expansion. I think they're all good expansion. I thought it was fine like the others. Probably my favorite 2 are the ones that are easy to mitigate, meaning the inspired things for good help, the conspirators for bad situation. The die is pretty easy to understand, and I do love the shields. That's my favorite out of all of them. Well, okay, so that is Proving Grounds. The fun part about it, I can tell you, is playing it over and over, trying to figure out how to win the game. It took me a good handful of games to really come up with the strategy of, limiting the singles, find where you have a little bit of wiggle room, re-roll those dice, and try to blow it out. Even if you end up with a bunch of die that don't do anything, as long as they're all matched and paired, you're probably going to be good. Okay, that's what I would go through. It's a slow way to get there, but that will give you the win. But you know what? It's also fun to gamble. Go for the victory. Don't listen to me. I play blackjack all the time, so who am I to tell anyone not to gamble? Okay, the expansions are all rad. I'm enjoying it. Another great thing about it, even though you see a lot here, is actually very easy and quick to set up, which I really like. Okay, so that again is Proving Grounds. If you're into solo games, give that a whirl. Okay, and if you have questions about gameplay, let me know. Thank you again, everyone. I will talk to you soon. Until then, bye.